This video will be a note-for-note breakdown of the guitar solo that enters at roughly 1 minute and 57 seconds. The supporting rhythm guitar and bass parts will also be covered in this video. A tab sheet for each part will briefly be displayed after its respective analysis. A final demo of all parts combined will be featured near the end of the video. As a bonus, a quick look at the main riff and outro will close out the video. The tuning used in this video and on the record is standard E and 440 wavelength calibration. The solo is going to be 8 full measures in length. We're going to begin by placing the third finger on the G string at the 4th fret. We're going to bend this first note up a full step in pitch. What we're going to do is bend it so it sounds like the note on the same string at the 6th fret. Also, I'm going to place my middle finger on that same fret, on that same string, to make this note physically easier to bend. So this is what the bend is going to sound like. And here's what the note sounds like on the same string at the 6th fret. You can hear the similarity. We're going to pick this first note down on 1 and bend it up a full step in pitch. And this will ring out for the first measure as a whole note. And it's going to be tied to a dotted half note on the second measure. In short, this is going to ring out for 7 beats. We're going to end the second measure by doing 4/16 notes counted 4 ianda. What we'll do is go back to the natural unbent position of the note on 4, pick it down, and we're going to quickly bend it up as we do it. On the E beat, we're going to release it back to its natural note. Okay, that's unbent. Okay, it's going to sustain out as we release that bend. On the and beat, we're going to pull off to the open string. And on the beat, the final 16th note of the measure, we're going to place the first finger on that same string at the 2nd fret and pick it up. So this is what the first 2 measures in sequence are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 iana. And now we've reached the third measure. This note where the first finger is on the G string at the 2nd fret should still be ringing out because we played it on the last 16th of the previous measure. It's actually tied to a dotted half note to begin the third measure, which rings out for 3 beats. So to end the third measure, we're going to play 4 more 16th notes, counted 4 ianda. The first of these will be with the third finger on the G string at the 4th fret. We'll pick that down. The E beat is when we pull the third finger off to the first finger on that same string at the 2nd fret. Okay, we're not picking there, we're just pulling off. The and beat, we'll pull off with that first finger to the open string. And to end the measure, we're going to go with that third finger to the D string at the 4th fret and pick it up. That's the beat. Now, this is tied to a whole note on the 4th measure. So what I'm going to do now is I'll just give you a 4-count lead in and play the first 4 measures in sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 iana. 1, 2, 3, 4 iana. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we've reached the 5th measure. We're going to begin by placing the third finger back on the G string at the 4th fret. On 1, we're going to pick this note down and let it ring out as a quarter note. And we're going to do that same bend as we pick it. On 2, we're going to play 4 more 16th notes, counted 2 ianda. We're going to start at the natural position of that same note, pick it down on 2, and quickly bend it up. On the E beat, we're going to release that bend back to the natural unbent position of the note. Okay, it's going to sustain out as we release it. On the and beat, we're going to pull off to the open string. And on the beat, the final 16th note of that second quarter, we're going to pick upwards with the first finger on the G string at the 2nd fret. This is what the 5th measure sounds like so far. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2 iana. Okay, this last note is tied to an 8th note on 3. And I'm going to leave 3 silent in the count just because it's easier. My foot's still tapping to that beat. On the and beat after 3, we're going to go with the 3rd finger back to the 4th fret on the G string. We're going to pick this up and do that bend again. This time it rings out as an 8th note. On 4, we're going to repeat that process, but we're going to pick down this time. And on the and beat right after 4, we have an 8th note rest. So with the 4 count lead in, this is what the 5th measure sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 4. And now we've reached the 6th measure. We're going to begin by placing the middle finger on the B string at the 12th fret and the 3rd finger on the high E string at the 12th fret. On 1, we're going to pick this double stop downwards. We're going to take that middle finger and bend the B string up a full step in pitch as we do it. This will ring out as an 8th note. On the and beat, right after that, we're going to pick this double stop again upwards, and notice that the middle finger is still bending the B string as we pick it. This is going to ring out as another 8th note. On 2, we're going to release the bend back to the natural unbent position of the note. We're not picking that again. The note's just going to sustain out as we release the bend. Okay, this will be a 16th note. This is what it sounds like so far. Okay, now we're going to play 3 16th notes counted E and A, picked up, down, and up. The first one, the E beat, is with the middle finger on the G string at the 11th fret, picked up. The and beat is the 1st finger on the B string at the 10th fret, picked down. And the A beat, the final 16th note of that 2nd quarter, is the middle finger going back to the G string at the 11th fret. On 3, we're going to play an 8th note, picked down, with the 1st finger back on the B string at the 10th fret. And on the and beat right after 3, we're going to go with the 3rd finger to the 12th fret of that same string, pick it up, give it a full step bend as we do it. On 4, we have a quarter note rest. With the 4 count lead in, this is what the 6th measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, E and A, 3 and 4. Let's run through the 5th and 6th measures in sequence just one time. I won't count aloud as I play. I'm just going to give you the 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we've reached the 7th measure. We'll begin by placing the 3rd finger on the B string at the 17th fret. The first half of this measure is actually going to use the same time values, the same count and picking motion that was used in the previous measure. The only difference is now we're doing everything off of this single note, where the previous measure we used double stops and change notes. So with the 4 count lead in, here's what the first half of the 7th measure sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, E and A. On the 3 through 4 beats, we're just going to repeat what we did on the 1 through 2 beats of this measure. So that brings us to the last 2 notes of the measure. 2 16th notes counted and A, picked down and up. The first will be the and beat picked down with the 1st finger on that same string at the 15th fret. And the A beat is the 3rd finger going back to the B string at the 17th fret. So with the 4 count lead in, this is what the entire 7th measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, E and A, 3 and 4 and A. And now we've reached the 8th measure. We're going to use 16th notes with steady alternate picking for the bulk of this measure. The first 2 16th notes are going to be a repeat of the 2 16th notes that we used to finish up the previous measure. On 1, the 1st finger is on the B string at the 15th fret, we pick that down. On E beat, the 3rd finger goes to that same string at the 17th fret and we pick that up. On the N beat, we're going to shift up a full step in pitch, so the first finger is on the high E string at the 17th fret. We're going to pick that down. And on the upbeat, the final 16th note of that first quarter, we're going to go with the third finger to the B string to 19th fret and pick it up. Now to start the second quarter, the first two 16th notes are going to be a repeat of the last two that we just did. On 2, we go to the first finger on the high E string at the 17th fret and pick it down. On the E beat, we go back to the third finger on the B string at the 19th fret and pick that up. On the AND beat, we're going to shift down a half a step in pitch, so the first finger is on the 16th fret. We'll pick that down. And on the upbeat, the final 16th note of that second quarter, we're going to go with the middle finger to the B string at the 17th fret. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a 4-count lead in and play the first half of this measure much more slowly than you're going to hear it on the record. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 E and a, 2 E and a. Okay, now on 3, what we're going to do is shift down a step, so the first finger is on the high E string at the 14th fret, and what we're going to do is we'll pick that down. On the E beat, right after that, we're going to go with the middle finger to the 15th fret on the B string, pick that up. On the AND beat, we're going to go back to the first finger on the high E string at the 14th fret, pick it down. On the upbeat, we're going to go back to the middle finger on the B string at the 15th fret. So the third quarter sounds like this. 3 E and a. So to finish up the measure, we're going to play 3 more notes, counted 4 E-and. It's 2 16th notes followed by an 8th note. What we're going to do there is we're going to take the pinky and place it on the B string at the 17th fret. We'll pick that down on 4. On the E beat, we're going to go to the middle finger on the B string at the 15th fret. That's picked up. And on the AND beat, we're going to go back to the pinky on that same string at the 17th fret. That's picked down, and that's going to be tied to a whole note on the next measure, and we're going to give it some vibrato. So what I'm going to do is give you a 4-count lead in, and I'm going to do this entire measure at a slower pace than you're going to hear it on the record. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and. Let's run through measures 7 and 8 in sequence just one time. I won't count aloud as I play. I'll just give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's run through all 8 measures in sequence just one time. I won't count aloud as I play. I'll just give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 4 measures were squeezed into the first line in order to condense this tab sheet and make it easier to fit into one video slide. What we have here is 10 measures. The first 8 are the actual solo, and the last 2 measures are actually where the vocals enter the song to start the third verse. The supporting guitar part is going to be a 1 measure long riff pattern that gets played 8 times. We'll begin by playing an F-sharp 5 power chord, and that's where the root note is the first finger on the low E string at the 2nd fret. The first two notes here are going to be eighth notes, counted one and picked down and up. On 2, you have a quarter note rest. And what you'll notice is when I do that, I take the side of my hand and rest it on the strings to deaden them out. On 3, we're going to have another quarter note, and that's an A5 power chord. That's where we're playing the open A string and barring the D and G strings at the 2nd fret with your first finger. On 4, we're going to play one more quarter note, and that is a B5 power chord, and that's where the first finger is the root note on the A string at the 2nd fret. So what I'm going to do is I'll give you a 4-count lead in, and I'm just going to play all 8 measures in the rhythm part. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 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 2, 3, 4. We're just going to play this one measure 8 times in sequence, as indicated by the repeat sign at the beginning and ending of the measure highlighted in yellow. The bass guitar is going to work off the F sharp note for the bulk of this solo, and that's with the first finger on the low E string at the 2nd fret. The first 3.5 measures are going to be a steady pocket groove of 8th notes with alternate picking, just like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. Okay, at this point, we've reached a fill about halfway through the 4th measure. It's kind of the halfway point of the solo. We're going to start out by placing the first finger on the A string at the 2nd fret. This is the 3 beat. We're going to pick it down and let it ring out as the 16th note. On E, the 16th note right after that, we're going to hammer on with the 3rd finger to that same string at the 4th fret. Okay, this E beat is sounded entirely by the left hand. We're not going to pick that note. And on the and beat, we're going to go with the first finger to the D string on the 2nd fret and pick this note up. It's an 8th note. So these 3 notes are going to sound like this. 3 and. Now to finish up the measure and the fill, we're going to go with that 3rd finger to the same string at the 4th fret. We're going to pick this down on 4 and let it ring out as an 8th note. On and beat, we're going to pick it down again, let it ring out as a 16th note. And on the beat, which is the final 16th note of the measure, we'll pick the open string upwards. So our fill is going to sound like this. 3 and 4 and a. Okay, so with the 4-count lead in, this is what the first 4 measures in sequence are going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 a. Okay, now what we're going to do for the rest of the solo is go back to this F sharp note and play that steady pocket groove of 8th notes for 4 more measures. The only thing that we're going to do differently is pick the open E string on the last 8th note of the last measure picked upwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. What we have here is actually 8 measures. You'll notice on the 2nd and 3rd measures, and also on the 6th and 7th measures, there's a diagonal line with a dot above and below it. What that is a repeat sign, which means to repeat the previous measure for that measure. The intro is going to be a 2-measure long riff pattern that gets played 4 times. We're going to start out playing 4 straight eighth notes counted 1 and 2 and picked down up. The first will be with the first finger on the low E string at the 2nd fret. The and beat after 1 is the 3rd finger on the A string at the 4th fret, picked up. The 2 beat is the first finger going to the D string at the 2nd fret, picked down. And the and beat after that, picked up, is the 3rd finger going to the same string at the 4th fret. This is what you have so far. 1 and 2 and. Now we've reached the 3 beat. We're going to go back with the first finger to that F sharp note on the low E string at the 2nd fret. We're going to pick this down. It rings out as a 16th note. On the E beat right after 2, we're going to take the 3rd finger and go to the A string at the 4th fret and pick this up. It's going to ring out as an 8th note. We're going to pick this note again on the final 16th note of that 3rd quarter, upwards. Okay, the trick here is you have 2 upstrokes in a row. Okay, and we're going to close this out by playing 4 16th notes counted 4 and pick down up. The first 2 are with the first finger on the D string at the 2nd fret, and the last 2 are with the 3rd finger on the D string at the 4th fret. So with the 4 count lead in, this is what the first measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, E of 4 and. Okay, now for the second measure, the first 4 notes are going to be exactly the same. What we're going to do differently is we're going to play 2 power chords to finish up the measure. They're going to be played as quarter notes. On 3, we're going to play an open D5 power chord. Okay, and that's where the middle finger is on the B string at the 3rd fret. The first finger is on the G string at the 2nd fret. And we're picking the open A and D strings downwards. Okay, that's on 3. On 4, we're just going to play an open A5 power chord, picked down by barring the D and G strings at the 2nd fret. So this is what our 2-measure riff pattern is going to sound like with the 4 count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, E of 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. With the 4 count lead in, let's run through all 8 measures just one time. I won't count aloud as I play, I'm just going to give you the lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll play these 2 measures 4 times as indicated by the note. Play 4 times that's above the 2nd measure. The highlights at the beginning of the first measure and the end of the 2nd measure are repeat signs. The outro is going to be a 2-measure long riff pattern that gets played 4 times. We're going to start out on the first measure of the pattern, working off of the notes of the F sharp 5 power chord. Okay, these are going to be straight 8th notes. Okay, and we're going to walk 1 note at a time as we do this, starting from the root note, which is the first finger on the low E string at the 2nd fret. We don't want to fret these notes out and let them ring together. We want the notes to sound individually. That's why we're going to walk. So the first 3 notes, the 1 and 2, we're going to pick right down the chord in a downward sweeping picking motion, just like this. 1 and 2. And on the and beat after 2, we'll go back to the root note and pick that up. On 3, we're going to go with the 3rd finger back to the A string to 4th fret and pick that down. On the and beat after 3, we're going to continue that downward sweep to the D string, and the pinky will be on the 4th fret. On 4, we're going to go back to the root note and pick it up. We'll close up the measure by going back to the third finger on the A string at the 4th fret, pick down. With the 4-count lead in, here's what the first measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 in, 2 in, 3 in, 4 in. Now we've reached the second measure. What we're going to do is play 4/8 notes to start it out. We're going to take the pinky and tuck it back under the third finger on the D string at the 4th fret. We're going to pick that down. On the N beat after 1, we're going to go with the first finger to the 2nd fret on that same string and pick that up. On 2, we're going to go with the 3rd finger to the A string at the 4th fret and pick it down. And on the N beat after 2, we're going to go to the 1st finger back on the A string at the 2nd fret. Okay, and to finish up this measure, we're going to play the same open power chords we did in the main riff or the intro. We're going to play the open D5 on 3 is a quarter note picked down, and the open A5 on 4 is another quarter note picked down. So with the 4-count lead in, this is what the second measure is going to sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 in, 2 in, 3, 4. With the 4-count lead in, let's do the first 2 measures in sequence just one time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 in, 2 in, 3 in, 4 in, 1 in, 2 in, 3, 4. I won't count this aloud as I play. I'll just give you the 4-count lead in. 1, 2, 3, 4. The bass guitar will also double this main rhythm to close out the song. What we have here is 9 total measures. You'll notice the yellow highlight at the end of the second measure. That's a repeat sign. That'll send us back to the repeat sign at the beginning of the first measure. We're going to play through those 2 measures 4 times as indicated above the second measure by the play 4 times.